Welcome everybody to our introduction on the CNE to validate knowledge of the role of the novice nurse educator. The definition of novice nurse educator has been established as educators new to nursing education with less than 3 years of nurse educator practice. The role has defined competencies and task statements as well. The structure of the certification exam or the certification program for the CNE novice has some differences when compared to the other two nurse educator certifications. Currently, we have the CNE and we have the CNE CL, which is CL stands for clinical. The novice is valid for 3 years, as we mentioned, with the goal of you then being ready as you transition to being more of an experienced educator, that you would sit for the CNE certification. Okay, so that's kind of the trajectory of the novice transitioning using the Patricia Benner's novice to expert model, that after 3 years, you're more comfortable in your role and more competent. Okay, so that is the model that NLN has chosen to follow. It is non-renewable for that reason. Okay, so the hope is that you will then sit for the CNE exam or the clinical exam, whichever one is the best fit for you. These are common questions that we get. So some of you may have these as well. So what's on the exam? What resources do I need to study? What's the passing score and where do you start? Well, these are all great questions. So by the end of our time together, you will know the answers to most of these questions. Now, the one you will not know is what is the passing score. NLN, unfortunately, does not disclose a passing score to us. We do know that it is in the 90s range. We also know that there are 150 questions on the exam that are pulled from the 8 competencies. CNE has 8 and CNE Novice has 8 as well. We're going to take a high-level look at those shortly. Where do you start? You start with the exam blueprint. NLN, they truly do practice what they preach. They share with us some best practices that we should follow, but they also role model those practices for us. And we're going to take a look at an example of that when we review the exam blueprint. What resources do you need to study? We're glad you asked, because we have that information available for you today as well during this session. This is the website I was referring to earlier. So if you haven't been, you want to go ahead and take a look at the NLN website. If you hover over here over certification for nurse educators, you will see this page that will open up, and then you will click on CNE Novice over here on the left-hand side, and then it will populate you to this page. There are a couple of resources I want to bring to your attention. First is going to be the handbook. Other resources you will need to help you on your journey to success. You still want to use the CNE review book by Dr. Caputi, as well as the Billings and Halstead teaching and nursing. Okay, so same resources as the CNE exam, again, because the competencies, even though they're worded a little different, they are essentially the same as the CNE exam. NLN just explains that the questions will not be as in-depth as the CNE exam, okay, for the novice exam. So let's get started. Experience is the best teacher. Now, this is a novice exam, so the higher level learning and application of concepts will not be expected at the same level as the CNE exam for the novice exam. Remember, NLN knows that you're a novice, right? So they know that you have minimal experience in the area of nursing education. CNE readiness, well, there's a couple of different ways that you can evaluate your readiness. First is to complete an SAE or self-assessment exam. Those are available on the NLN website to be purchased. Now, we recommend the SAE because it's going to give you 2 important elements for consideration. First, it's going to give you exposure to how NLN writes exam questions. Second, it's going to give you the rationale for each answer, why it was correct, why the other 3 were incorrect. And then another option for you to do a self-assessment is just by using the blueprint, right? The old-fashioned way. So printing out that blueprint, and you can use a color coding system, red, yellow, green, or you can just simply make notes along each sub-content area as described under the 8 competencies. Specifically for novice nurse educators, this is exciting for us to hear Dr. Sellers educate for a couple of reasons. But first and foremost, we know that there have been so many nurse educators that are new and transitioning into the role of the nurse educator that was an expert in their previous specialty, whether that was bedside nursing or being clinical faculty. So this is a way or a bridge, if you will, to support the validation of knowledge as a novice at the novice level as we transition into the role of nurse educator. And then second, it gives those nurse educators who are not yet ready to sit and be evaluated for the advanced knowledge that they need to have an option to be certified as a nurse educator at the novice level. It is an investment, even though the exam is less expensive. It's $75 if you take it under the pilot time frame and $125 after the pilot. But you should invest in a review course. We, of course, recommend ours. We have a self-paced online review, and we will be having a live review as well. And we will be integrating the live review for novice into our standard CNE review. There's a couple of reasons for that. Based on our review of information from NLN and feedback that we're hearing posted in publications, we anticipate that the content is going to be the same as well as the resources. It's just not, the novice exam is not going to require you to go as in-depth in validating your knowledge as the CNE exam, okay? So that's number one. We know there's strong alignment. Number two, remember that this novice exam, certification exam, is just a bridge to the CNE, right? So we want you to take advantage of learning as much content as you can, hone in on those 8 competencies as listed in the handbook for novice, but we want to help you bridge to the CNE certification exam 3 years after you pass the novice exam, okay? So that's the reason for that. The other great benefit I'll go ahead and share with you is that here at Dr. Sellers Educate, you will have access to the CNE live review if you want to repeat it in the future and not have to pay for it. There's no need for you to pay for it twice. So we want to support you again on your journey and be with you until you are successful. And you can always reach out to us if you have questions about that at drsellerseducate@gmail.com. It is worth it, even though it's an investment, because we know that certification is the mark of professionalism, and nursing education is a specialty, and we want to validate our knowledge in our specialty nursing practice of nursing education. All right, let's take a look at content before we wrap up our time together. Competency 1, remember, competencies 1 and 2, which is around facilitation of learning. Both of them is 50%. That's right, half of your exam, 75 questions. Competency 1 is 39% of the content, focusing on learning styles, learning objectives, and facilitate learning. One of the important learning styles that you want to make sure you understand is the VARK learning style. It is an acronym, stands for Visual, Auditory, Reading, and Kinesthetic. We know all of our learners learn differently, right? The expectation from NLN is that we're able to integrate a variety of teaching strategies to promote how students learn and how we transfer knowledge to them. 3 things you need to know about VARK and all of the learning styles, okay? First is the definition, so what do they mean? Second, what type of assignments can I integrate into the classroom to ensure I am connecting with all of the 4 learning styles or preferences? You're going to hear that term used interchangeably. And then third, what are some ways that I can map back to assignments related to each of the learning styles? So we want to integrate learning. First, you want to understand the definition. Second, what type of learning strategies? And third, how do I evaluate for that specific learning preference or style? Nursing theory, there are 3 learning domains, and cognitive domain is one of the essential ones that we focus on, but there's also psychomotor and affective. The 3 elements you want to understand related to learning domains. Number 1 is the definition. Number 2 is where is that specific level of learning on the pyramid or on the taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is a very common description tied to cognitive domain, but it actually is related to all 3 learning domains, okay? There's a taxonomy or a pyramid that levels understanding based on student scaffolding or how they learn over time or how they build on concepts over time, okay? So teaching and nursing, there's great resources there to help you better understand Bloom's taxonomy. And on our YouTube channel, if you head over to YouTube and just Google Dr. Sellers Educate, you will see it there. We have several different snapshots on Bloom's taxonomy, as well as on the learning domains. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to our channel and click on that bell so you'll be notified every single time we publish a video or a new snapshot on our YouTube channel. So that's the second thing. Where is the level of learning for that specific learning domain? And then second and third are examples. So you want to understand examples of the learning at each level on that pyramid and the verbs associated with that level. Okay, so Appendix A is going to give you more information about nursing theory, but again, teaching and nursing, as well as Dr. Caputi's review book, is going to give you more in-depth information about Bloom's taxonomy. We talk in depth about Competency 1 and Competency 2 in our self-paced learning review, but also in our live review. And again, it depends on your style of learning. If you like more interaction, more engagement, then we encourage you to go ahead and register for our live review. And then if you are one that likes to learn at your own pace, go ahead and register for our self-paced online review, okay? Both have the same content, it's just a matter of your engagement level. And then learning objectives, we know they should be learner-centered. We want to reevaluate our learning objectives, ensure that they are appropriately aligned with the course in the curriculum, and gather feedback from our students in the evaluations, as well as our students' performance as we are seeking opportunities to improve our learning objectives. Now let's take a little bit of time and level up in looking at content related to educator attributes. So first, who's in the room? This is a replay, but if you were doing a live review with us, we'll want to know who's in the room. So where are you on your education journey? Do you have 1 year experience? Do you have 2 years experience? That's going to allow us to tailor how deep we go into some of the content that's listed in each of the 8 competencies. What is your preferred learning style? NLM realizes that there's no way for us to know each individual student's learning preference. However, they do expect us to integrate a variety of teaching strategies as well as evaluation methods that we're using with our students. Our ultimate goal is to close those gaps for our students. So we need to know what those gaps are. We find those out through formative evaluations as well as summative evaluations, with the goal of, once we gather that information through the formative process of evaluating, that we're able to coach, redirect, provide additional resources to close those gaps. Positive role modeling. We want to convey, let's go back one. We want to convey a sense of support, caring, understanding with our students, allowing them to still meet our deadlines, but to support that healthy, supportive faculty-student interaction and relationship that we need to have. Civility is really important, establishing those ground rules with our students from the very beginning, ensuring that those standards are upheld, and when they're not, bring it to the student's attention in a private setting. We want to be expertise in our practice area. We want to communicate that in a way that does promote civility with our students, which means that we have to do our homework before class. We have to present information in a very clear way, in a very organized way, so that students can learn without distractions. Participation in discussions. Now, this is for both online as well as in person. NLN says that we should engage with current literature, with relevant content with our students in the classroom, as well as in online discussions, to build community and to establish that, again, supportive student-faculty relationship that's so important as part of the learning process. How do we implement a variety of teaching strategies? First, we want to go to the literature. What does the evidence say about those engaging teaching strategies, those high impact practices, so that students, especially our adult learners, are able to learn in a way that they're able to deliver quality patient care and develop critical thinking and clinical judgment skills over time? The setting does matter. Are we in a clinical setting or classroom? That's going to determine what our teaching strategies are going to be. What are the needs of our learners? How do they learn? We know that we've got to connect with all different learning styles in our classroom. In our review, we talk about Knowles, adult learning theory. We talk about Cobb, experiential learning theory, as well as Vark. Okay, so those are the three primary learning style theorists that we focus on. Are we face-to-face? Is it a remote learning experience? Are there simulation experiences? All of these variety of delivery methods should influence the teaching strategies that we use. We want them to be relevant, and we want them to be engaging with our audience and with our students' learning processes. Tanner's 4 steps of clinical judgment, if you're not familiar, you want to definitely familiarize yourself with those 4 steps. There is, again, a YouTube video, of course, that's out there on Tanner's 4 steps. We go in depth talking about those in our live review, but also take advantage of the free resource of the YouTube video that's available for you. Essentially, in looking at the clinical judgment model, the first phase is noticing. So students notice whenever through a variety of different vehicles. Number 1 is through content that's shared during a didactic experience. Also through observing of others, right? In the clinical setting and the lab setting. They process and interpret what those experiences mean and in determining what their actions should be, and then they respond. They also reflect on previous experiences that they've had, either through case studies or patient care delivery themselves, in formulating what their next steps should be, and then they reflect. We want to ensure that reflecting is integrated into our curriculum, either through an assignment or through our clinical post-conferences that we have with our students. Time for reflecting is really important. Everybody's at a different point, right, on their journey. So you want to set a goal, whatever that looks like for you. You want to make a plan, get to work so you can execute on that plan and stick to it. Life happens. We have to pick up an additional course. Or even a clinical assignment. So you want to make sure you get back on track as soon as you can, so you can you are going to purchase the resources that we talked about. You're going to print out the CNE Novice Candidate Handbook from the NLN website. You are going to purchase Dr. Caputi's review book, and we have a link to that review book. You can find it here on the YouTube channel, or if you're reviewing this content somewhere else, you're going to see it noted in the email or in the detail section of this information that you are reviewing right now. And then third is Billings and Halstead Teaching and Nursing. It's an Elsevier textbook. So if you are an Elsevier shop, reach out to your vendor and see if they'll share a desk copy with you. You want to go ahead and register. If you're watching this as a replay and December has not passed yet, we offer it in December, and then starting in January, it will be integrated into our CNE review. Okay, so it will be offered for the CNE review to include the novice components as well as the traditional or standard CNE certification. You want to take your practice tests. They are available free through the handbook. There are about 8 practice test questions. And then also, if you purchase Dr. Caputi's review book, and we know you will because it's recommended, there are practice test questions at the end of every chapter. Okay, that's going to help you evaluate where you are on your journey. We will tune in and look forward to seeing your questions in the email, and I hope to see you in an upcoming course. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.